everyone. I'm Christine Harding with the National Cryptologic Museum Foundation and the Cyber Center for Education and Innovation. Welcome to our CCEI Cybersecurity chat. Today we have Taylor Ownbey, who is currently a full-time student, undergrad student, as well as a cybersecurity professional as a cyber lab manager. She's going to talk to us today about ethics and trust in cybersecurity, and is going to share with you how what her pathway was to her career profession in cybersecurity. Good morning, Taylor.
Good morning. So, as Christine said, thank you. I'm Taylor. I'm currently a student and also an employee for Capital Technology University, which is a small STEM engineering school in Laurel, Maryland, which I'm currently at right now. And I'm in a position as a cyber lab manager. We have a computer lab where we simulate cyber attacks, prepare for cyber competitions, and also just do our labs and homework. So I help run that. And I'm also a full-time member of our cyber battle team, Signal 9, where we do competitions such as CCDC, we do CTFs or Parsons, pretty much as every cyber competition we'd ever want to do, that's what we do on the team. And so I'll get back to that a little bit later and also how I got into cybersecurity. First, I'll talk about the topic at hand. So, as we all know, cybersecurity is such a huge part of everyone's life. Not groundbreaking information, we all know that. But cyber threats that a lot of us face are much larger than any of us could ever be qualified to even handle or comprehend. So just in 2017, the Equifax data breach affected around a third of American adults, which is around 147 million people. So chances are you or someone you directly know was negatively impacted by that data breach. There was over 145 million social security numbers that were leaked, along with 38,000 driver's licenses and so many home addresses, tax IDs, credit card info, passports. Pretty much if you want to commit identity theft, that is the dream, having all of that private information just out there. And the worst part about that is that's not even the largest data breach to date. The largest one was in 2013 with the Yahoo breach, affecting all 3 billion of its users. So even if you don't use Yahoo anymore, or even never did, chances are you already know people who were affected, because out of all the people in the world, 3 billion, it's a large sum of that. And with that, plus the WannaCry, the Sony hack that was a few years back, the whole Cambridge Analytica scandal, such cybersecurity threats are incredibly huge and also have an international impact. But the thing is, not all the threats are super high tech, involving hackers in dark basements and hoodies. Some of them are just straight up human error and social engineering. Back to the Equifax data breach, one of the largest issues with it was Equifax set up a website to help people submit requests to help with their information being sent out. And the URL was so confusing that the Equifax Twitter page sent out the wrong URL around 7 times before correcting it. And of course, people made a fake website with a fake URL to collect information. So cybersecurity, it is super important to everyone and everything, because the entire world is connected digitally. However, you never really hear about the cybersecurity protections and efforts working. You don't really hear about a home break-in prevented as you hear about a home break-in. So encryption, password protection, two-factor authentication, those are concepts that are so immensely useful in cybersecurity that you don't really hear about in the news or in day-to-day life. So trust in cybersecurity is established through those measures, through strategies and also cybersecurity-based companies who help try to protect your own data. But the problem is, no matter how good a cybersecurity company or policy is, it has to establish trust in the populace and those who are using it before it would even matter. Setting up a reputation is crucial, because if you have 2 companies that sell locks for your front door, one has a reputation of being pretty solid, only breaking under extreme measures. The other one can be broken with just a good elbow against it. Even if that second one is made with much better materials and has less likelihood of being broken into, you're going to go with the first one, because people's reputations and people's perspective on things matters. Also, when it comes to cybersecurity, the user experience and also the privacy that is gained from it is super crucial. especially right now, we're seeing a rise in popularity with browsers such as DuckDuckGo, which, as opposed to Google, gather less of your personal information, which is part of the reputation and trust that it's building. So even though so many giant tech companies will take all of your personal data, companies that will say and advertise that they don't take your personal information will help establish better trust in them. So one of the way that these companies and cybersecurity companies will create their policy is through a figure called the CIA triad, which has no relation to the Central Intelligence Agency. Sorry to disappoint. But the CIA triad is a foundational model for all cybersecurity policy. And pretty much no policy can be implemented without this guide for the security measures. Now, the CIA triad in principle is mainly only focused on information, just hard data itself. However, with the three broad concepts, it can be easily copied and applied to other areas of cybersecurity. So even though it was only really developed for information, it's pretty much useful for all areas of info security. Now, the first part of the triad, the C in the acronym, stands for confidentiality, which is pretty self-explanatory, but one of the main parts of confidentiality is access control. Now, let's say you have a company, you got an office, and some people want admin access. Some of the employees want admin access. Now, you would be willing to give this to IT because that's what they're doing, but a department such as HR doesn't really have a need for admin access on the servers. So you would prevent them from having access, but allow IT to have access. That is a pretty basic sort of example of access control. Another example of access control, which I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with, is the idea of security clearances in federal jobs. And security clearance levels are ranked pretty much by, depending on what the information you know, how detrimental to national security it would be if that information was leaked. So the bottom one's confidential. It'd be pretty damaging, but it's not the end of the world if your information gets leaked. Top is top secret. It would be super detrimental and incredibly damaging if that information you had is leaked. So all of the super crucial important information would be at top secret, and all the other more general but slightly secret information would be at secret and confidential. Another simpler example of access control is simply file permissions. So on your computer, you'll have files that you can only look at, but you can't access, files that you can edit, or just files you can't even look at or edit, sort of read-write permissions. Another aspect of confidentiality is sort of cryptography and encryption to protect your data, which is super useful, especially when confidentiality gets compromised. And what this would look like is either a data breach, as we mentioned before, someone mishandling information or leaking something, such as with a top secret security clearance example, or simply just an unauthorized party reading information, such as the HR looking at all the data logs on servers. Not something they're authorized to do. The next part of the triad is integrity, and this pretty much says that data is protected from being modified, deleted, or something being added from an unauthorized party. And this also ensures that any changes that are made can be reversed, so no one can have supreme control over the data and just mess everything up, which helps limit damage. For instance, with a Sony hack, the hackers deleted all of Sony's computer infrastructure, which is not a good example of integrity because it's difficult to recover from that since they can't undo the changes. More examples of integrity being compromised is that data that should be encrypted on server is unencrypted. That sort of limits integrity because it is not protected from modification, deletion, or addition. It can be read and it can be edited right off the bat. And also the crucial data being deleted, as I mentioned prior. The last part of the triad is availability. And this pretty much means that the data on the servers and all of the services that users require are available most, if not all the time. There's high versus low availability. High availability is pretty much, if you need it, chances are you're likely able to access it. Low availability, on the other hand, means that services are down, it's not working. And lower availability can be caused for plenty of reasons. If there's a power outage, or if you're just running a system update, hardware failures, or even just maintenance, it'll lower how available your system is. However, cyber attacks also limit this, such as denial of service attacks or distributed denial of service attacks, DDoS attacks. One of the ways to help with this is distributive allocation. And what this is it distributes all of the work to different devices, so not one device is overworked. Because if you have one computer running pretty much everything, all those other computers not doing much, that one computer, if it shuts down, and since it's being overworked, it probably will shut down, entire thing goes out. But if you distribute it to multiple computers and systems, even if one goes out, the others are running, and you can recover from that quicker. Another thing that helps with availability is redundancy. And what this is pretty much having like a backup system in case of malfunction. And even on your personal computer, you'll probably have backups of previous updates. So if something goes wrong with your computer, you can restore to a previous update and not lose everything on your computer. Now, this sort of redundancy helps with disaster recovery. And what disaster recovery is setting up backup sites and also just backup updates in the case of a disaster or cyber attack. There's two different types of backup sites, hot and cold. Hot ones are pretty much active. They're constantly running all the time. If your main site goes down, you can jump to this hot backup site immediately. Cold ones are not currently running and active. They take some time to get the gears turning, get the ball rolling. But once it's active, it's up and running. And availability can be influenced by, as mentioned before, DDoS attacks or ransomware, or just good old-fashioned unplanned downtime. So creating a balance with the CIA triad is incredibly important, because if one side has too much and the other side doesn't, it's not a good secure system. Such as shutting down a system frequently would increase security because there's less of a chance of getting compromised. However, availability is weakened. Or you can take even more of your customer's personal data to help increase security, but confidentiality is lowered and therefore not a balanced system. And on a server, everyone having all of the information would be more efficient. It would save time between people asking different departments. However, integrity and confidentiality would be pretty much out the window. So jumping from the triad into a more broad concept, there's sort of these four good topics in cybersecurity that also need to maintain balance in order to have a good ethical system and also have the users have trust within the system. And these concepts are transparency, autonomy, resilience, and security. Transparency, pretty simple. It's pretty much just being transparent, not trying to hide too much from your employees, the public, and your users. It's super important for establishing trust because most people wouldn't trust something they don't fully understand or can see what they're doing. However, too much transparency can be a risk to privacy and security. Autonomy is pretty much the entity that we're talking about having control in its own thoughts and actions. There's not too much outsider influence, because if a company is pretty much being told to do by another larger company, it's kind of hard to put trust in a smaller company because they're not working with their own actions in mind. Resilience is the ability to prepare and adapt for change, sort of having the backup sites and also just being able to change what they're doing pretty easily. They also withstand and recover from interruptions. And security, which is the last one, is security. It's pretty much freedom from potential harm that could be caused by others. Now, these four concepts are pretty simple in theory. However, there's a lot of tensions between them once you start getting into the nitty-gritty of policy, because you could have less transparency. You can hide what you're doing, what your operating system is, what your employees are doing, even what data you're collecting. And that would increase security, because the more or the less that people know, the less that people have to work with to attack you. However, that doesn't really help with trust at all, because the more secretive you are, the less trust people have in you. Less autonomy could help with resilience. Like if a company were to outsource some parts or some of their functions and also have outside investors, that could help with them adapt and change and also have things work more smoothly. However, they would be less autonomous and less able to work with their own actions, their own thoughts in mind. However, more autonomy and more transparency is really good for establishing trust. You're being super open with your users and who you're talking to. However, once again, security will be decreased significantly. So a balance with all of these concepts, just like the CIA triad, is super important with policy making, because prioritizing one side over the other creates either an insecure system or a system that be super secure that no one would trust. So as I mentioned prior, I was going to jump back to some of my personal experience and what I do, which also, if anyone has questions on what I do, I have been told that people are pretty interested in it, feel free to ask. I'll answer whatever I can. So I'm a current undergraduate student, so not too much professional experience. However, some of my main experience that I do is involved with open source intelligence and digital forensics. So this is pretty much as close as you can get to like the stereotypical tech characters and all the crime shows. As close as you can get to real life is pretty much what I do. So open source intelligence is pretty much using the World Wide Web, everything at your disposal to gather information on people, locations, trying to help put together pieces to a story. It's just pretty much incredibly intense research and using unconventional sources, such as voter records, which are public record, Google Maps, that sort of thing. And there's entire jobs based on open source intelligence, especially through the federal government, like such as certain agencies will have positions called open source intelligence offers, or there'll be digital targeter, whatever the position is called, there'll be positions around that. And the other part of what I do is digital forensics, which is mainly the criminal justice system. So you'll get devices that are confiscated from crime scenes or through people, and pretty much take these apart to get all the data that you can from them through either physically taking them apart or different softwares that you can do with them. I see that Michael put in open source intelligence framework. Thank you for that. Because yeah, having all the resources that you can is super useful for open source intelligence. Yeah, with that, I'll open the floor to any questions if we have any.
Can you talk a little bit? I mean, this is really exciting, the type of work you get to do. I liked how you expressed it in, it's close as you can get to real life. Can you walk us through one of those forensics things that you're doing, if you can? Understand that you may not be able to, but if you could walk us through some of the things you've done, I'm sure our folks on the line, as they're thinking of questions, etc., would be interested in hearing that.
Yeah, of course. Now, I can't, of course, say everything, because with nature of cybersecurity, especially in Maryland, a lot of government. But what I can say through our school's digital forensics lab, and also through some experience I have with the local police department back in Colorado, I would pretty much help with devices that be collected from officers, and we would pretty much go in.
So one of the things that I would do is I would get usually a smartphone, however you can do this with computers much easier, and you'll be able to take the backing off of it and get through all the pieces in there, cleaned up, and make sure that you can get all the data you can from it. That is the most complicated. However, there's much easier things that you can do from your own computer, such as using software such as Autopsy and Wireshark. And a lot of companies and schools will have their own sort of digital forensics opportunities. A lot of cyber competitions that I've done, and even like a summer camp that I did, will help simulate pretty much a criminal investigation, giving you devices and forensic files to work with to help put together a narrative and pretty much act as that criminal investigator in such a case. So there's more that I do in digital forensics, but I, of course, can't say all of it right now.
Right. As a woman in cybersecurity, could you probably give us some thoughts about how important it is for more women to join this particular career field?
Yeah, for sure. So it's no surprise in most STEM fields that is mostly male dominated. However, tech and especially cybersecurity is one of the most unbalanced fields. So pretty much in all of my classes, I'll be the only female student, or there'll be one more in a class of 30. So it is incredibly imbalanced, but also having that other perspective is super useful, because cybersecurity, even though it is under the STEM umbrella, it is an incredibly creative field. It is all about problem solving and finding new ways to solve things, or new ways to break into things or protect from things. So just having as much diversity in people that you can will increase the number of new ideas that you have. So having more women in the field definitely helps with that.
Hey, Taylor, how are you able to manage being a student and also working full-time in the field? How do you manage that?
So it is pretty complicated sort of balancing them out. I do have to give credit to the school that I go to, Capital Tech, because in the cybersecurity major, they prepare for students to have internships or even full-time jobs before they graduate. So the majority of the classes that I take are online or have the choice to be online, or night classes. So being able to work during the day and then take classes during the night is sort of the best way I've been able to manage it. And also, there are plenty of internships and job opportunities, government and private sector, where they will do a part-time internship during the year over the summer and then offer you a full-time job at the end of it. So even if you're just able to sort of deal with a little extra workload, balance it out for a semester, it can definitely pay off in the end.
Were you involved in any of the cyber competitions? Were those things that you were interested in too when you were younger?
Actually, I wasn't that interested in cybersecurity in general. For most of my life, my goal was to go an English or visual arts route, but definitely not cybersecurity at all. I believe it was junior year of high school that I started learning how to code through Code Academy. And my school did not offer any tech courses. We had no coding. We were a pretty small high school, so we didn't have anything like that. So I sort of just had this new interest and new personal experience in tech without too much to do with it. So I sort of took a dive going into a major that I had no actual experience in. So it also just sort of shows that there will, of course, be a lot of people who have been coding and working with computers their entire life. But with tech and with cybersecurity, because I can speak to that, you don't really need that long personal experience, because I sure didn't.
How should high school students now, given what you just said, how should they kind of prepare themselves?
Yeah. So now it is so much easier than ever to prepare for cybersecurity. There are so many online resources that you can use, and you don't even need a fancy computer to do it. I would recommend learning how to code. I prefer Code Academy, but also there's Khan Academy, which I haven't used as much. And there's also plenty of YouTube channels and also websites such as Cybrary, which have lessons in cybersecurity. Because so many companies and federal agencies are desperate for someone in cybersecurity. The amount of unfilled jobs is insane. So they're willing to put educational resources out there for free to encourage people. Mm-hmm. So just sort of scouring the internet for resources, and you'll definitely come across some.
The other resource that I also want to mention too, that you had mentioned of Code Academy, et cetera, is you're right. There is many professional positions that are unfilled. In fact, it's over 500,000. So a good resource for everyone also is cyberseek.org. They actually have a heat map, and so you can just take your mouse over the state where you live, and it will tell you the number of current open positions, as well as what the positions are currently in the state. It's a really good resource for students to use as well.
Yeah, I just posted that in the chat room. And Taylor, I get a lot of questions about internships, and you've talked a lot about internships. What kind of advice would you give high school students, et cetera, and college students, any of them, about internships and maybe the trials or tribulations or successes or challenges or whatever you've had in that internship world? Because I know those are extremely important, and I get lots of questions about that.
Yeah, and of course I can't say too much about who is offering the internships. I can say that I've had multiple offers, private sector, public sector, including DoD. There was one at the Pentagon that I was offered. So I would say one of the biggest pieces of advice that I can give you is to just apply. So many internships and job positions will have this huge list of qualifications, and you might meet one, you might meet like half, you might meet none of them. The worst someone can say is no or does not get back to you. So just applying and just giving it a shot, it will honestly pay off. None of the internships that I have applied for and been accepted for, I was fully qualified for, not by a long shot. Some of them I was even a grade too low, like they wanted seniors, and I'm currently a junior, and they still went for me. Another thing that I would recommend is, if you can do this in high school, fantastic, but if not, college is a great time for it, is to work on getting cyber certifications. There's the CompTIA Security Plus, Networking Plus. Those certifications, some companies and agencies seem to care about more than the actual degree itself. Because I know people who haven't graduated yet, but have just one certification, and they've already gotten offers for full-time jobs in like their second year of college. Those certifications, you can get a chance. And then just going out there and applying. Indeed is one of my favorite job boards. And also there's USA Jobs if you're looking for federal options. And also a lot of agencies such as FBI, NSA, they'll have opportunities directly on their website. So if you know you want to work for an agency, you can go there directly.
Thanks, Taylor. And I also noticed you have a LinkedIn account.
Yes, I do, yes.
Very good. Thank you. Could you talk about why you decided to do a LinkedIn account and how you feel that has helped you in this space?
Yeah, of course. So LinkedIn, for anyone who's in here doesn't know, is sort of like a social media platform, but it's purely business, all professional. I made a LinkedIn right around my freshman year of college, and having this has been super beneficial because when you apply for jobs and internships, you can link your LinkedIn account to those applications, and they can get a better view of who you are that you can't fit in a resume or cover letter. So on my LinkedIn, I have more detailed descriptions of some of the coursework I've taken. It'll also show some of the groups and interests that I have, which is I'm in a professional group for cryptographers and crypto analysts. That's not something that's on my resume, but on my LinkedIn, it shows that I'm interested in that. So having a LinkedIn to sort of show who you are better and also show that you are professional and you're definitely ready to work in a professional field has been incredibly useful.
Thank you, Taylor. We really appreciate you participating today, as well as all of you that have joined us as well. Have a good day.
Oh, yeah, thank you so much. Looking forward to it.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining. All right, bye-bye.
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 Bye, Mark.
Have a good day.
Thanks, Taylor.
Thank you.
Really appreciate you being with us.
Oh, yeah, thank you so much.